Well, here we are today talking about the scientific method, and I wanted to talk to you about a problem that I saw. So I am drinking this concoction, which has beet extract, watermelon, blueberries, Ningxia, which is an Asian remedy for arthritis, and water, and lemon juice. So it's a little sour, so I wanted to put some honey in it, and my problem is that it wasn't dissolving. And so my question is if I raise this 5 degrees Celsius, just putting it in the microwave for a couple seconds, would it dissolve? And so this is a great example of what you can do for an experiment, and I will walk through each of the steps with you to explain it. So first of all, my question was, if I heat the water 5 degrees Celsius, could I dissolve the honey? The hypothesis was, and I will just say this because it's often good to state the hypothesis as a null hypothesis. You want to say it like you're biased, like I don't believe it. So my null hypothesis would be that honey will not dissolve in the elixir if I raise it 5 degrees Celsius. It will not dissolve. So then I set up my experiment. I take my elixir, I put it in the microwave for 5 seconds because I know that it raises it at 5 degrees Celsius. And I put honey in it and I see if it dissolves. That's my experimental group. And my control group is I'm going to have this on the counter. I'm going to add honey to it, but I'm not going to raise the temperature. So the experimental group is what you're putting the variable in, or the factor in, which is heat. And then the experimental group is going to be the one that I don't heat. And I'm going to do that a couple times, and I'm going to see if every time I heat it, it dissolves, or measure how much was dissolved. So remember, you want to run your experiment multiple times the same way. There's an experimental procedure that you do it step by step with the same measurements, the same heat. Then once you do that, every time you heat this up and put honey in it, a tablespoon or whatever, has to be the same. Then after you run that 3 or 4 times, you look at your data. You collect the data, I should say. And the data is every time I run it, does all the honey disappear or dissolve? That's the data. The analysis is, let's say 3 of the times it dissolves when I heat it, and 3 of the times it does not dissolve when I heat it. Well, then I'm going to analyze that, or I'm going to come to some kind of understanding. I'm going to look at the data and make an interpretation. Once I see that this dissolves the honey 3 times in 3 tests, then I'm going to make a conclusion. And in this case, my conclusion is, yes, the honey did dissolve when I raised the temperature 5 degrees Celsius. So the way you do the conclusion is you go back to the hypothesis. What was my hypothesis? That that when my elixir was raised 5 degrees Celsius, honey would not dissolve. So that was my hypothesis. So the conclusion is that is not correct. And in fact, when raised 5 degrees Celsius, the elixir did dissolve the honey, and I could drink it and it would be sweet. So you're going to be doing an experiment at home, and this is a kind of a good way for you to see how this works. And so you're going to have an opportunity to do an experiment like this and then go through the steps in real life. Details on that will follow.